Is that Donald Trump is unfit to be the U.S. president.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you.
All right, so you say that President Trump is unfit to take the presidency. Why is that?
I would say that one of the most important values that we have as Americans is our form of government and things like respecting the peaceful transfer of power. I think that being able to concede when you've lost an election is really important. So I would argue that
just right away, the first guy that comes up, he looks like, an influencer, right? He's one of the people that knows that Donald Trump's a fraud. He knows the truth. He knows the reality. He's one of the people that manipulates others on his side into believing nonsense. That's the vibe I get from him. I don't know anything about this guy, but that's the vibe I get. Maybe he doesn't do any kind of content, but he looks like he's a content creator. He starts off kind of with an attitude, and then he's laughing. This is a common thing you see with right-wing influencers. What is funny about this? There's nothing funny about January 6th. Any patriot would not be laughing in a discussion about January 6th. Regardless of whether you believe Trump incited a riot or didn't start the riot, this was an embarrassing time for this country. And as a patriot, nah, you're not going to be laughing about it. Destiny hasn't said anything that's funny. For some reason, these are the type of people that you see in the right wing. You explain to me why that is.
Events that took place leading up to and on January 6th are in and of themselves, among a whole bunch of other actions, immediately disqualifying for the office of presidency.
Okay, so Steve, let's talk about January 6th. What happened that day in your mind, and why does that disqualify President Trump?
I think that Donald Trump was unwilling to accept the results of the elections. I think that he fabricated slates of electors in order to have his vice president pick him to be the winner in the Capitol building on January 6th, even though he didn't have the votes or the evidence to support it. I think that there's a wholly undemocratic thing. I think that it is destructive and undermines our democratic process of governance.
Do you attribute the violence on January 6th to Trump?
Largely, yes.
Okay, why?
I think that Donald Trump had been stoking the flames a year before the election, saying that the election was going to be rigged. I think that Donald Trump stoked all of these claims basically with no evidence, and then I think that he continued to stoke the flames while fabricating them, that the election had been stolen, that there was voter fraud, and then he invited people on the day of the certification, telling them that their election had been stolen, their country was being taken from them, they needed to fight like hell, that they were going to lose everything. Stoked all of these claims basically with no evidence, and then I think that he continued to stoke the flames while fabricating them, that the election had been stolen, that there was voter fraud, and then he invited people on the day of the certification, telling them that their election had been stolen, their country was being taken from them, they needed to fight like hell, that they were going to lose everything. He knew what he was inviting them there for, he knew what he was asking them to do, he knew, yeah.
He also told them to go down to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically, right? What time did the protesters first?
Wow. So, let's say Donald Trump did not incite the riot. Okay. However, if I wanted to incite a riot, I could get away clean by just making sure that at some point in time during the day, I say peacefully and patriotically. That'll wash away everything else I do or say. So I can fan the flames as much as I want. I'm not saying Trump did, right? I'm just responding to his argument. That's a popular argument about he said it peacefully and patriotically. If they're bringing that up as a point, that means that they're saying that you can easily scam people, right? Because as long as you say peacefully and patriotically at one point in time, then they'll be like, oh, okay, you said that. They'll let it slide, right?
So into the Capitol. What time did they first enter the Capitol?
I think it was around 10 a.m. I think is when the Capitol grounds were breached.
No, 2:11 p.m.
No, to be clear, that's not true.
2:11 p.m. is when protesters first entered the United States Capitol.
There's the grounds that were secured outside. Those grounds were breached while Trump was still giving his speech at the ellipse.
Okay, let's talk about the entrance of the Capitol, because that would be more severe in your mind than simply walking onto the...
Was there a delay in the certification? Was there a delay in the certification? It was, because the National Guard showed up and they kicked the people out after Donald Trump was forced to tell them they were going home after watching them break in for 3 hours and do nothing. By your own admission, they said.
Let's have a productive conversation.
No, we're not having a productive conversation. You're not answering my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked you a very simple question. The first person that got into the Capitol...
I mean, regardless of what your ideology is, you gotta admit he's got a creepy ass smile, right? It just, something about that smile just doesn't seem right. Just something's off about this guy. You tell me what it is.
people out after Donald Trump was forced to tell them to go home after watching them break in for 3 hours
what
and
is
do
the-
nothing. By your own admission, they
Let's
said.
have a productive
No, we're
conversation.
not having a productive conversation. You're not answering my question.
Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, I asked you a very simple question. The first person that got into the Capitol who wasn't allowed in, how did he get in?
They walked into the Capitol.
No, they broke in with a riot shield that he stolen from an officer.
Okay, and that makes President Trump unfit for
Do you
office.
acknowledge that that happened? Are we living in the same reality right now? Do you acknowledge that
There
that
was
happened?
violence on January 6th. I acknowledge that. There's
You
100,000
see how I'm making a
protesters.
specific claim?
1,500.
You know what 1 + 1 is?
I do.
So Destiny made a specific claim about how the first person went into the Capitol. He's asking him to acknowledge whether that happened or not. And for some reason, he refuses to. He's not rejecting it. He's not agreeing with it. He's just ducking and diving from it. Why?
What is 1 + 1?
I think it's 2.
Okay, good. We can answer the question.
Matt is racist. Matt is racist.
The first person that got into the Capitol building, how did they get in?
You were arguing that Trump is unfit.
You don't,
How did the first person get into the Capitol? No response. Why?
2 + 2 is
I
4.
What
Who was the
thing?
first person into the Capitol building? How did he get in? Why don't you say he broke
Is
in?
your entire argument about January 6th, yes or no?
Well, my biggest argument right now is that
You see that? This is what I'm talking about with the modern conservative movement. He's asked a specific question and he's refusing to answer. This guy is not having a good faith conversation with Destiny. Right? Whatever he's doing, it's not trying to have a productive conversation. You're trying to talk to someone, they're asking you a question, and you're just ignoring it. I mean, at a minimum, he could reject the question and say, that's a dumb question, I'm not even going to answer that. But he doesn't do that. He just pretends not to hear it and moves on to something else or says whatever. Like, what is this? I would like to be in a country where we have different ideologies and we can disagree on, you believe things should go a certain way, I believe things should go a different way. But that's not what this is, right? This guy is not willing to have an actual conversation with Destiny. He's just playing games.
Hi, how's it going? Pretty good.
See you again.
Yeah.
So, you don't think Donald Trump is fit for office?
Gays for Trump.
January 6th. However,
Thanks, yeah.
however, we have to admit that January 6th was compromised. There were patriots and there was Antifa. There were people
No.
who were, yes, there were actually.
not.
I have video of it. Don't argue with don't argue because I actually have video of people who were.
He just told Destiny, don't argue with me. Is this man Destiny's father? Is he talking to a child? Who the hell speaks like this? You're having a debate with 2 adults, and you say to the other person, don't argue with me? Again, what is wrong with American conservatives? This is not about ideology. Him saying that has nothing to do with ideology, right? This is something completely different.
On the ground, who I have video of people in Black Bloc getting dressed up in MAGA gear.
Okay.
And
It's
according to-
1420.
according
First of all,
to-
you don't have the video, but let's see how long
I
it
do
takes.
have the video.
Who's
And
the
according-
first person to break into the Capitol?
So the people who did the worst things on January 6th were well-known Trump supporters. This guy must know this. So why in the context of that would he bother to try to talk about that there might have been some people dressed as Trump supporters? Even if there were people who were left-wingers dressed as Trump supporters, that has no relevance when you're discussing an event where, again, the worst actors are well-known Trump supporters. It'd be one thing if sometimes like there's a Black Lives Matter protest and the person who's doing a lot of the crazy stuff, no one knows who it is. Maybe they're on video, but it's like they're unknown. They're nobodies, right? The major players during January 6th were not nobodies. They were notorious, right? So again, even if there were some people there who were Antifa, whatever, it's irrelevant. So why is he bringing it up? Other than to be dishonest.
Was it Antifa?
It was an Antifa person. Yes, it was.
You're
and
wrong.
it's actually, if you read Annie No's book about Antifa
I don't
Unmasked,
read
it
Annie.
actually talks about how they use the
Oh my goodness. And you know, oh my goodness. All right, on to the next. Wow.
these claims that he sat there.
I'm making this claim based on hundreds of hours of deposition testimony by people that have been in front of a number of courts, in front of the J6 meeting, in front of the media, in front of the...
Okay,
there are so
pause.
many different people that are willing to testify to all of this.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seats.
Hey, what's up?
So, I think that, we've been talking about January 6th. I'll be the first to say that, and I think a lot of people here would agree that there were bad actors that day. I'm someone who comes from a family of law enforcement, family of military, so I believe it.
So this guy right away reads as audience, right? People like the first guy mislead and deceive people like this guy. This guy looks like a true believer, right? He is in the matrix, fully plugged in. He really believes this stuff. He believes Trump is a great guy. Whatever the popular right-wing narratives are, he actually believes it, right? Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, all these people have brainwashed this guy into believing, but he looks like a true believer. I always say on the right, you have two camps. You have the liars and frauds who make stuff up, who lie about things. And then you have the audience members who are watching this stuff and actually believing it and going around repeating talking points given to them by people like that first guy that went up, right? This is a representation of one of the victims of that kind of propaganda.
In law and order, and so I do believe that there were people on that day who took things way too far, and I think most Republicans understand that. From people that I had talked to on the ground, I think that the media blew it up into something bigger than it was. Again, I'm not saying that people.
Notice he's not laughing. No weird expressions on his face.
There's evidence that's coming out with.
He looks like a normal guy,
On January 6th, showing police officers
not some kind of freak.
people through the hallways.
Just
So
a little
to
bit
say that
confused.
every single person who entered that building is, a criminal. I think a lot of people.
Just to be clear, that's never been my claim. That every single person entered was the building is such a boring and uninteresting. I would never.
That's kind of a trashy thing to say, but that doesn't change my opinion that I think this guy believes the stuff that he's saying. But these absolute arguments, it's nonsense, right? For him to say every single person is a criminal, like nobody's saying that, right? Why would he even say something like that?
Waste my time making it. The reality was, I do agree with you on your fundamental. There were a lot of people that were misled. I do agree with that.
Like him.
Trump was behind that misleading the entire time. The people were there because he was tweeting out at them saying, "Come here for a historic protest." It was obvious what the protest was going to be. They were protesting the certification of the vote, and what happened.
President Trump never told anyone to break into the Capitol. President Trump has always run on a campaign.
Oh boy. Now he gets into this simpleton logic. Unless Donald Trump spells it out and says, "Hey guys, go break into the Capitol," then he didn't do anything. Okay.
I just have questions. I'm more. I like.
Freak. Right away reads as freak. She's got that stupid cult hat on. I don't know what she's wearing. Let's see.
Ask people questions. I'm interested in hearing how people think. So when you're talking about the insurrection on January 6th, what would you describe during when Kavanaugh was elected to Supreme Court and you had all the pros?
What would you describe during? What would you describe doing during? This woman is an idiot.
Protesters at the Capitol, they're banging on the Capitol doors, they were screaming, they were yelling. How do you feel about that?
I would like to know the specifics of the event. I don't recall any proceedings being delayed. I don't.
What
recall any
aboutism?
Top-down call from the president to.
You don't
these
remember that
particular-
they had to stop the congressional meetings because people were banging on the door and being so loud and trying to
Well,
break
that's
it
what the
doors?
proceedings were.
So Destiny just said he's unaware about the event she's talking about, but yet she's now going to proceed to beat him up about his recollection of something that he doesn't recall. She's an idiot.
If they did, then it's bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to be clear, this is the difference between me and you. Okay, is that if everything you're telling me is true,
Oh, I'm a female, so that's
Make
obvious.
America great
I'm
again, that's
a
right.
female. Yeah, I just
Okay.
put it on. I had a
That's
Capitol
the
hat
difference
on.
that I'm talking about. I
So
don't
I'm a
care
female.
about
I'm a female and you're a male, and it's almost like you're.
What is she talking about? I mean, did I call it or did I not call it? This woman is a moron. A MAGA cult moron. And for some reason, no one on the right has any problem with a person like her. They don't want to make fun of her. They don't want to call her out. They'll call out crazy lefties. But this woman, who's clearly deranged, they got nothing to say.
Attacking me because I'm a female. Are you anti-female? Are you anti-female?
What is she talking about?
Okay. What I'm saying, I'm very honest. What I'm saying, yes, I am honest. What I'm saying,
Sweetie, can I ask you another question?
I didn't even answer your first question.
No, you.
Sweetie, can I ask you another question? Okay.
said that you didn't know the specifics.
Yes, but
I'm
what
not
I'm
gonna
saying
force. I'm not gonna force you into a yes or no.
I promise I never do anything.
Okay, I'm not.
If it happened as you say, I would say that's bad. And you know what? The
I
people
agree
involved
with
should
you.
be arrested.
You're still yelling, and I agree with you.
I'm not yelling.
I
I'm not
agree.
close to yelling. I can't. If you want me
Well,
to
I'm
do
glad you are protecting your voice because I couldn't hear you before.
Okay.
So I can definitely hear you now.
We could do the maybe hair on your ears better.
You want my hair behind my ears?
If it's inhibiting your ability to hear me speak, yes.
Well, actually, it's because you need the bottom of your. I'm in in the medical fields, the bottom of your tongue needs to be clipped. So that's the reason why you have a list when you're talking.
Okay.
Anyway, if you want medical advice.
She's in the medical field. Okay. I'm guessing receptionist. This woman is an absolute moron.
I can do that, but it's better to be private on that.
If
I
I
have
need
another
to-
question. So we agree that during the Kavanaugh trials, people were trying to break the Supreme Court.
We have
That's
that.
bad. I agree with you on this.
Uh-huh.
So, and the next thing is, I have a question for you.
Sweetie.
Border and immigration, right?
Well,
What would you say?
I see you want,
Actually,
yeah.
if they can play it back. So anyway, what would you say if the Biden-Harris, if we have the Biden-Harris administration right now, if our border was filled with neo-Nazis with tiki torches, what would happen?
You'd probably sell a whole lot more lighter fluid. I don't know. What do you mean?
No, if
Okay,
our border.
pause. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority.
This is MAGA. But it's the left has gone too far. Right.
Okay, I want to talk about the alternate slate of electors and how historically that has happened before on the Democrat side. Yes, it has. In 1960, JFK, again,
Okay. This is another freak fraud. Does not believe the things that he's saying. He's another example. This is one of the people who manipulate right-wingers into believing nonsense. As idiots like the Young Turks would say, he knowingly lies.
since Nixon ran an alternate slate of electors in case it was overturned in Hawaii. It was eventually overturned in Hawaii, and so then those electors were certified, and JFK
He's definitely a Ben Shapiro fan.
won the
Yeah,
state.
so I'm glad you bring this up real quick because this is one of the biggest pieces of your talking points that you guys always bring up, and I don't know why. In 1960, 2 slates of electors were authorized by the state.
Notice the very familiar grin, right? That's how you can identify these frauds, right? They're just a bunch of trolls. They don't care about the country. They don't care about anything else but themselves and getting attention and whatever grift they're doing.
Legislature. Both were granted the certificate of ascertainment from the governor because they knew that it was a very close election and they authorized a recount, and because that recount was going to go past the some mid-December date, December 14th for the 2020 election, but some mid-December date for when they had to certify their vote. So they said, okay, well, we'll send in both certificates, and then on the day of the counting, on January, whenever they would have done the certification of Congress, then they can choose which one was authorized by the state legislature based on the results of the recount. Donald Trump's certificates were not authorized by any state legislature. Well, do you acknowledge that? Wait, real quick. Do you acknowledge real quick that none of the 7 states?
You see, this is a classic example. This is how you identify these frauds. He made a point that the slates of electors were not authorized by any of the legislatures, and he's asking him to acknowledge it, and he doesn't want to acknowledge it. He doesn't want to say yes, it's true, no, it's not true, or I don't know, right? And then he's got the grin again. You see that? This is the grin. If you're a conservative, these are the people who are lying and manipulating you, who are playing you for fools. Right? I don't know this guy, but if this guy is actually a content creator, and I called it yet again, wow.
None of those were authorized by any state legislature?
Can I answer?
You're not going to.
No, I am. No, I am.
Conversation.
No. They weren't.
And see, Destiny knows it. He knows he's not going to answer the question. This guy is a BS artist. Right? He's not trying to have a conversation. He's not trying to have a good faith conversation. It's not about he disagrees with Destiny. Right? It has nothing to do with his opinion versus Destiny's opinion, right? It's just trolling for attention.
Certified, and why? It's because fraud wasn't found. It wasn't proven in court.
No, you're lying. You're lying. They were
Wait, so
authorized.
you're saying fraud was found?
No, you're lying because.
I just want to get to a time where, again, I can have a disagreement with people who have different ideologies, right? I would like to be able to share my perspectives on why I think things should be done a different way, why I disagree with people that have different ideologies. But currently, with the American right wing, it has become a cult, right? It's not about ideas. It's not about ideology. It's just a cult. You can't talk to them anymore. You can't have any debates. It's just, you got these frauds who go around spreading nonsense, and then you have their victims. It's just insane. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate Me comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.